Hate it when people assume I'm lazy. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's short for PCOS. Whitney Way Thore became a legend the second she walked onto TV screens in 2015. With her loud laugh, uncompromising attitude, and brazen dancing, she made body positivity a revolution. But stardom, like it tends to do, only revealed half of her tale. Behind all the show's outrageous behavior and comedic appeal was a woman silently fighting battles far more agonizing than most knew. Battles with her body, her heart, her destiny. That is the heartbreaking existence of Whitney Way Thore from My Big Fat Fabulous Life. And it's not what you expect. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. The ascent of a fabulous icon. During winter 2015, American TV saw the face of fresh air in the person of Whitney Way Thore. Expecting viewers who were watching TLC to be greeted with the standard procession of flawless faces and impossibly perfect physiques, the reality was very different. A woman whose size, sense of humor, and integrity challenged the very notion of reality TV's success. Whitney did not make a subtle entry. She swept in like a force of nature, unapologetically existing, radiant with her joy and fierce in her aspirations. My Big Fat Fabulous Life was not simply another trending reality show or cat fight staged for our viewing pleasure. It was a declaration of the raw realities of existing in a bigger body in a thinness-obsessed world. Whitney ruled with humor, encouraging people to perceive her as something greater than a size or a cliché. She danced, perspired, flubbed, and succeeded before millions, demonstrating that joy and satisfaction were not the domain of the thin, the young, or the traditional. Her passion was infectious. She took the everyday and made it sensational, whether instructing dance students, fighting for body acceptance, or just being openly raw with her loved ones on television. But what was acted out before national audiences was in a sense only the highlight reel. The glitter and dance hid more nuanced, more difficult truths. Whitney's heart was unbreakable, but her path was not without ache. Fame, for all its benefits, did not remove the harsh edges of public criticism or the personal pains of her own struggles. Even as she posed for photogs and swatted away internet trolls, Whitney was confronted by a quieter foe, her own body, which at times seemed more enemy than friend. Each moment of victory was in its own way earned, and each exhibition of poise habitually developed from a struggle that most would never know. In the shadows, out of view of the affirming applause and cyber cheers, Whitney struggled with realities more profound than body image. Her obstacles were not merely cultural. They were medical, psychological, and existential. While audiences were inspired by her challenge to societal norms, Whitney lived every day aware that her body was in its own way engaged in a constant battle against her. The burden she bore was heavier than flesh. It was an unseen, relentless companion, following her every step, every aspiration, and every dream. A body that betrayed her. Long before reality television fame, before millions saw her face, Whitney Way Thore was another college kid trying to figure out the unpredictability of young adulthood. It was in these early years packed with potential and dreams that she was diagnosed with something that would forever change the course of her life, polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS. For Whitney, those three letters became an invisible wall, one that would isolate her from the future she had envisioned. PCOS is a hormonal disorder that interrupts hormone balances, induces abnormal menstrual cycles, and frequently results in weight gain that resists diet and exercise. But for Whitney, its influence reached far beyond scale markings. It challenged her feeling of control, bringing an unpredictable, unyielding element into her life. Polycystic ovary syndrome, the terms sounded medical, almost harmless. But to Whitney, they meant something far more sinister. They meant that despite her best efforts, her body would not align. That the easiest aspirations would become challenges to overcome. Maybe the most heartless side effect of PCOS was its effect on fertility. As fans sat glued to their television sets, watching Whitney spin and smile, reveling in her exuberance, very few were aware of the secret pain she carried behind closed doors. The program jubilated in her strength, but rarely dwelled on the moments she spent sitting by herself, grieving the shutting window of motherhood. The cameras captured the spectacular moments, the performances, the achievements, the celebrations, but not the quiet nights spent agonizing whether or not she would ever get to hear a child say "Mom." The world cheered for her boldness. But within, Whitney sensed the pain of loss that arrived not all at once, but in slow, torturous degrees. The truth was PCOS did not simply assail her body. It assailed her hopes, her expectations, her womanhood. For Whitney, each smile to the world came tinged with the fact that her biology slowly closed the doors she most longed for her to open. Motherhood is something that I have to do for myself. Until I deliberately attempt to conceive, I will not be able to make progress in life. These were the words spoken during a fleeting moment of vulnerability. They spoke of the actual price of PCOS, not only the weight gained, but the potential lost. PCOS was more than just a medical condition to Whitney. It was a stealthy robber, stealing from her in ways that few could perceive or grasp. It was a war waged in silence, a pain carried quietly behind the smile and the spotlight. Every morning, Whitney awoke not just to the obligations of a public figure, but to the private sorrow of a woman quietly coming to understand that some aspirations may forever be beyond her grasp. And as the world cheered her for her courage, not many understood the depths of her courage, the daily choice to persevere, to smile, even as something precious receded further and further. Shattered dreams, false hope. In the stillness of a routine day in 2016, Whitney Way Thore's axis was rocked. A pregnancy test, a mere small slab of plastic, turned the world upside down. For years, Whitney had been living in the shadow of polycystic ovary syndrome, a condition that made motherhood a complicated dream. Her doctors had warned her, statistics were against her, but hope, tough and resilient, ticked away in her heart. And on that day, with Lenny Ella Hatt, the man she loved then, by her side, that hope welled up to the surface. The test was positive. For an instant, all else in life receded, cameras, critics, the ceaseless din of reality show stardom. I thought it was impossible, Whitney recalled, the wonder still ringing in her voice years on. But then, all of a sudden, I could envision the future. I was going to be holding my baby. I was going to show them that in spite of it all, I could be a mom. The sensation was one she had never experienced, a dash of fear and sheer thrill. She let herself imagine a life up until then consigned to other women. She envisioned small hands gripping her fingers, bedtime lullabies, the victory of proving the world she could do what they claimed she couldn't. But happiness for Whitney tended to be fleeting. The good news of the positive test, that golden ticket to the next stage, proved a fiction. Later came reality with savage impact. The test was inaccurate. There would be no first ultrasound heartbeat, no gentle announcement to loved ones. All that remained was a hollow emptiness, a sorrow so piercing it felt as though it cut through all the defenses she had ever constructed. In one moment, hope so near she could nearly feel it was cruelly taken from her. One brief moment destroyed Whitney. What felt like a miracle ended up being a heartless reminder. Motherhood, the very thing she ached for, was forever out of her reach. The doors of her world, which had just opened up to a child, shut in on her. She had always prepared herself for it, but the loss hurt in ways she had not expected. It was not merely the lack of a baby, but also the removal of a future she had permitted herself to dream of. In private, behind the courage and bravado that propelled her to stardom, Whitney mourned. She cried for the child she would never know, the life that slid through her fingertips. She bemoaned her self-worth, her body, the incessant injustices of it all. But she also attempted with what strength she had to continue. This wasn't the first time her dreams had been crushed, but it was maybe the worst. Love, loss, and isolation. Whitney's experience with love was always public. Each first date, each breakup, each dream of forever lived out in front of an audience of millions. The glaring lights of reality TV didn't only shine on her life, they enlarged each victory and laid bare each weakness. Whitney was criticized not just for how big she was, but for her dating life, her decisions, her so-called desperation. "She's too much," others would say, as if wanting to be loved could ever be too much. Engagements were met with on-screen fanfare. Relationships were dissected by strangers on the internet. Every romance offered a form of stability, a piece of the puzzle. Whitney yearned for someone to stand by her, to be a part of the dream she'd struggled so hard to hold on to. But with every new disappointment, with every love affair that fizzled before it ever really started, the hope of companionship disappeared. In the still moments, when the